I used to love camping alone. I don't mean with a group or a buddy. I mean just me, a tent, and the sound of the forest. There was something peaceful about it, something that made me feel alive. The crackle of the fire, the rustle of the wind brushing through pine trees. The night sky spread out like an endless blanket of stars. It made me feel small in a good way. But after one trip 3 summers ago, I don't think I'll ever camp by myself again. It was early September when I decided to head out to northern Montana. I'd found this spot on a hiking forum. The user who posted it said it was quiet and untouched, and something about those words stuck with me. Quiet, untouched, peaceful. That's what I wanted. Peace. The drive there was long, several hours through narrow roads. Then a stretch of rough dirt trail that felt more like a forgotten path than a road. My tires kicked up clouds of dust that hung in the air long after I passed. The trees grew thicker the farther I went. My phone had lost signal nearly an hour earlier, and the GPS stopped working, so I was navigating purely off screenshots I'd taken beforehand. By the time I found the clearing, the sun was hanging low behind the mountains. The air smelled sharp, pine, dirt, and something else. Something colder, like the scent of stone after rain. There were no other cars. No other campers, just silence. The clearing was beautiful, though, a wide patch of flattened grass surrounded by towering evergreens. A small stream ran nearby, glinting orange in the dying sunlight. I parked my old SUV near the tree line, unloaded my gear, and started setting up camp. There's something weird about total silence. At first, it feels peaceful. Then, after a few minutes, you start noticing how unnatural it is. No distant hum of a highway, no airplanes, no birds calling, just stillness. By the time my tent was up and my small fire started crackling, the sky had turned a deep purple. I made a quick dinner, instant noodles of course, and leaned back in my chair, watching the fire glow. The heat felt good against the sudden chill in the air. I don't know what time it was when I first heard the sound, maybe around 9. The forest had gone pitch dark. I remember tossing another branch into the fire and hearing footsteps, soft ones, slow, crunch. Pause, crunch, I froze. I thought maybe it was an animal, a deer, maybe even a raccoon. But something about the rhythm didn't sound right. Animals move differently. These steps were too careful, like someone trying not to be heard. I turned slowly, scanning the trees. My flashlight beam cut through the darkness, long, narrow shadows stretching between the trunks. Nothing. Just blackness and fog. Probably just my imagination, I told myself. But I couldn't shake the feeling. A few minutes passed, then another sound, this time from the opposite side. A faint snap, like a branch breaking under weight. I aimed the flashlight again, still nothing. Then came the whispering. At first, it was faint, like wind moving through leaves. But it wasn't wind. It was low, breathy, almost mumbling. I couldn't make out words, just the rhythm of speech. Human speech. It circled my campsite. Left to right, closer, then farther. My heart pounded in my chest. I grabbed my hatchet, more for comfort than protection, and shouted, "Who's there?" Silence. For a long moment, the forest didn't move. Even the fire seemed quieter. Then somewhere out in the dark came a sound that made my blood turn cold. A whistle. 3 short notes. Low and slow, it wasn't a bird. It was human. I felt this wave of dread crawl up my spine. I packed my flashlight, my water, my bag, anything I could grab, and doused the fire. The only thing left burning was the faint glow of the embers. I got into my tent, zipped it tight, and sat with my back to the entrance. I didn't sleep that night. Every hour or so, I'd hear it again. That same whistle, far off in the trees. Sometimes closer, sometimes fainter. Once I could swear I heard breathing just outside the tent, a slow, raspy inhale, followed by silence. At one point, I worked up the nerve to peek outside. I unzipped the tent an inch and looked through the gap. My flashlight beam caught nothing but fog and trees, except, for a moment, I thought I saw something white between the trunks. Like a face. Small, pale, and still, but when I blinked, it was gone. Around 3 a.m. I started hearing something else. Tapping. Light, irregular taps against the side of the tent. Then silence. Then again from another side. like someone was walking around me, dragging their fingers along the fabric. I held my breath for what felt like hours. I wanted to scream, but my throat wouldn't work. The tapping stopped right above my head. And then, slowly, that same whistle. 3 notes. It was right outside. I don't know how long I sat there after that. Maybe an hour, maybe 5 minutes. Eventually, the sound faded, replaced by the faint call of birds as dawn crept in. When light finally broke through, I unzipped the tent with shaking hands. Everything looked normal, but as I stepped out, my stomach dropped. The ground was covered in footprints, barefoot, small, like a child's. They circled the tent in uneven rings, dozens of them, pressed deep into the dirt. I knelt down to look closer. Some were fresh. Some looked older. That's when I noticed something else. Handprints. Small ones pressed faintly against the sides of my tent, smeared in what looked like wet mud. Except there hadn't been any rain. I packed fast. I didn't even eat. I just threw everything into the back of my SUV and drove. The forest seemed to close in around me as I followed the narrow dirt trail out. About 15 minutes down the road, I started to calm down until I heard it again. Faint, distant, 3 short whistles, echoing through the trees behind me. I floored the gas pedal and didn't look back. The sound faded eventually, swallowed by the hum of my engine. But every now and then, when I'm alone in a quiet place, sometimes even at home, I swear I hear that same whistle. 3 short notes, always the same pattern. Always when I'm alone, and I still don't know what was out there that night. A person, a spirit, something else entirely. All I know is that it wanted me to know. I wasn't really alone. It's strange how some places stay burned into your memory. Not because they were beautiful, but because something inside you knew they weren't right. For me, that place is Black Ridge Lake. When I was a kid, my family used to visit it every summer. It wasn't a fancy spot, just a quiet lake tucked deep in the woods, surrounded by pine trees so tall they blocked half the sky. My dad would fish, my mom would read, and I'd swim until my fingers went wrinkled. But after what happened in the summer of 2011, I've never gone back. And I don't think anyone else should either. That year I was 17. My best friend Tyler had just gotten his license, and we were desperate for freedom. So when he suggested a weekend trip to the lake, no parents, just us and a couple of tents, I didn't think twice. It was supposed to be fun. We left early on a Friday morning, the truck packed with camping gear, snacks, and Tyler's terrible taste in music. The drive took us nearly 4 hours, winding through empty mountain roads until the asphalt gave way to gravel. The trees grew thicker, the air colder. Eventually we reached the sign, old and faded, barely readable. Black Ridge Lake. No swimming Tyler laughed when he saw it. "Guess they don't want people drowning," he said. I shrugged. Or maybe they just don't want idiots like us ruining the peace. We set up camp near the water's edge. The lake was calm, mirror smooth, and so dark it looked like oil. It was eerily quiet. No birds, no frogs, not even the buzz of insects. The only sound was the occasional ripple when the wind brushed the surface. By sunset, we had a fire going. We cooked hot dogs, joked around, and played old music from Tyler's phone. It felt perfect until it didn't. Around 10 p.m. I walked down to the lake to wash my hands. The moon was out, casting this pale silver glow over the water. That's when I noticed it. Something floating, about 20 feet out. At first I thought it was a log, but then it moved, slow, deliberate, against the current. I froze. "Tyler," I called. "Come here a sec." He jogged over, flashlight in hand. We both stared at the dark shape drifting in the middle of the lake. "Probably a fish," he said, but I could hear uncertainty in his voice. Then, the thing dipped below the surface. No splash, no ripple, just gone. We waited, staring at the water, but nothing came back up. Tyler laughed it off and went back to the fire, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something had been looking back at me. Later that night, I woke to the sound of water. It was faint at first, a soft lapping, like gentle waves hitting the shore. But the wind was still. I sat up, unzipped my tent, and peered out. The lake shimmered under the moonlight, and standing knee-deep in the water was Tyler. I frowned. "Dude, what are you doing?" He didn't answer. He was just staring out across the lake, perfectly still. "Tyler?" "Nothing." I got up, walked over, the cold mud sucking at my feet. "Bro, you okay?" When I got close enough, I realized his eyes were wide open, glassy, unfocused, and his lips were moving, whispering something over and over. I stepped closer. "What are you saying?" That's when he turned his head toward me, slowly, like it took effort. His voice came out in a low, raspy whisper. "It's calling." Before I could respond, he suddenly stepped deeper into the lake. Waist deep now, the water rippled around him, pulling faintly outward, like something was moving beneath. "Tyler!" "Stop!" I shouted, rushing forward. The water was freezing cold, burning against my skin. I grabbed his arm, but something yanked him under. One moment, he was there. The next, gone. I dove after him, eyes open, the murky black swallowing everything. I couldn't see. My lungs screamed. Then, just for a second, I saw it. A pale shape, long and human-like, but not human. It was holding him. Its hands, or what looked like hands, were gripping his shoulders. And its face. Its face wasn't a face at all, just smooth white skin with holes where the eyes should have been. It turned toward me. I kicked upward, gasping for air as I broke the surface. I dragged myself to shore, coughing, choking on lake water. But Tyler didn't come up. I screamed his name until my throat was raw. But the lake stayed silent, flat and still, like nothing had happened. I ran to the truck, grabbed a flashlight, shined it across the surface. Nothing. Just empty water reflecting the stars. I don't know how long I sat there waiting. Hours maybe. When dawn finally came, I searched the shoreline, the woods. No sign of him. No footprints. No clothes. Nothing. I drove out to the nearest ranger station, shaking so bad I could barely talk. The search team came that afternoon. They combed the lake for 3 days and found nothing. No body. No clothes. No signs of a struggle. They said he must have drowned. Cold water shock, probably sank deep, got caught in debris. But I'd seen what took him. I didn't say that part out loud. Who would believe me? A week later, they called off the search. I didn't go to the funeral. They didn't even have a body to bury. For months after, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that pale, faceless thing holding Tyler under. Sometimes I'd wake up gasping for breath, certain I could feel cold water filling my lungs. Then, one night, about 6 months later, I got a call. No number. Just unknown, I answered. Static. Then faintly, a whisper. "It's calling." My blood went cold. "Who is this?" The line went dead. I threw my phone across the room, but when I picked it back up, the call log said no incoming number. A few days later, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove back to the lake. The road was even rougher now, overgrown, like no one had been there in years. The sign was still there, but this time, someone had spray painted over it. "Stay out." The water looked exactly the same. Still, black and endless. I stood at the edge, staring into the reflection of the gray sky. The wind was quiet, and then I heard it, faint, like it came from below the surface. My name, whispered, drawn out. Carter. I stumbled back, my heart slamming against my ribs. The water rippled and something pale broke the surface. A hand. Small, smooth, and around its wrist was the same woven bracelet Tyler always wore. Before I could even think, it sank again, leaving only circles of dark water spreading outward. I ran. I don't even remember getting into the truck. I just remember the sound of tires spinning in gravel and the lake getting smaller in my rearview mirror. That was the last time I saw Black Ridge Lake. But sometimes, especially when it rains, I still hear water dripping near my window. And sometimes in the middle of the night, I wake up to the faint sound of someone whispering from the dark corner of my room. It's calling. And every time, I can smell it, that same cold, metallic scent of lake water. I moved across states. Changed my number. But no matter where I go, the whispers follow. I don't know what's in that lake, but I know it remembers me. And it's still calling. I've gone camping all my life, but this one trip changed how I feel about the woods forever. Every time I hear a knock at night, even if it's just the pipes in my house, I freeze. Because I know what it sounds like when something not human wants to be let in. This happened last summer to me and my girlfriend, Leah. We'd been dating for almost a year and decided to do something spontaneous, a camping trip at Red Hollow State Park in Utah. It looked perfect online. Tons of good reviews, families with kids, clean bathrooms, and safe, quiet campsites. We figured it would be a relaxing weekend, just stars, firelight, and a little break from the noise of city life. We left Friday morning, singing along to the radio, eating snacks, and joking around the whole drive. The road to the park wound through desert cliffs and wide open fields. By the time we arrived, the sun was setting behind the red rocks, and the whole place glowed like it was on fire. Our campsite was tucked near the edge of the woods, not too far from the main trail, but still private. We set up the tent, gathered some wood, and got the fire going before dark. Dinner was nothing fancy, instant noodles and hot dogs, but somehow food always tastes better when you're outdoors. Leah sat close to the fire, bundled in her hoodie. She said, "You ever think about how weird it is that we trust a thin layer of fabric to protect us out here?" I laughed. "That's part of the fun. If a bear shows up, I'll just politely ask it to leave," she smirked. But I noticed her eyes kept drifting toward the tree line behind us, dark now, completely silent. By midnight, the fire had burned down to glowing embers. The forest was still, no bugs, no wind, not even the rustle of leaves. I didn't realize it at the time, but that kind of silence isn't normal out there. It's the kind of quiet that feels like it's listening. We crawled into our sleeping bags and started drifting off. That's when I heard it. Knock, knock, knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. It sounded like someone tapping on the side of the tent, right near my head. I froze. Leah whispered, "Did you hear that?" "Yeah," I said. Probably a branch or something. But there were no trees close enough. The nearest one was at least 20 feet away. We waited. A full minute of silence passed. Then knock, 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 same rhythm. Same spot. Leah sat up. "Stop messing with me." "I'm not," I whispered. I grabbed the flashlight and slowly unzipped the tent flap. I shined it outside. The beam cut through the darkness, but there was nothing there. Just our fire pit, the picnic table, and the empty woods behind it. No footprints. No branches brushing the tent. Nothing. I zipped it back up and told her, "Maybe it's the wind." She didn't look convinced. And honestly, neither was I a few minutes later. Just as we were starting to relax again, it happened again. Only this time, the sound came from the other side of the tent. Knock, knock, knock. Leah gasped and grabbed my arm. Her voice trembled. "Someone's out there," I whispered back. "Stay quiet." I turned off the flashlight and listened. The knock stopped, but then we heard footsteps. Slow, crunching, deliberate, circling the tent. Every time the sound reached one side, Leah would squeeze my arm tighter. It made a full circle, then stopped right by the zipper. For a few seconds, nothing. Just silence in our breathing. Then, out of the darkness came a man's voice. "I'm cold," it said softly. "Can I come in?" The voice wasn't angry or loud. It was calm, almost pleading. But something about it made every hair on my body stand up. Leah covered her mouth, trying not to make a sound. I whispered, "Get away from the tent." No reply. Then came a dragging sound, slow, scraping against the dirt, like something crawling away. We sat there for hours, clutching each other, waiting for the sun to rise. I don't think either of us slept at all. When daylight finally came, I unzipped the tent and stepped outside. The air felt heavy, like the calm after a storm, and that's when I saw them. Tiny rocks, maybe 20 or 30, arranged carefully around the tent, forming a perfect circle. Leah stepped out behind me, eyes wide. "Did you do that last night?" "No," I said quietly. "Did you?" She shook her head. Then I noticed something near the zipper, words written in the dirt with a stick. The letters were uneven but readable. Thanks for the warmth. We packed up everything in record time. Didn't even eat breakfast. We just threw everything into the trunk and drove straight out of that park. Neither of us said much on the drive back. We were too busy trying to convince ourselves that it had been some kind of prank, maybe a weird camper, or a ranger with a twisted sense of humor. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. That night, Leah couldn't sleep. Around 2 a.m., she nudged me awake. "There's something you need to see," she said. She had her phone in her hand, open to the Red Hollow State Park reviews. Most were normal. Families saying how beautiful it was, how safe they felt. But near the bottom, there was one review I swear hadn't been there before. It was posted just 2 days earlier. The username was just Cold Hands. The review read, "If you camp near the woods, don't answer him when he knocks. He says he's cold, but once you let him in, you never leave." Leah stared at me. "That wasn't there before, right?" I shook my head, feeling my stomach twist. Maybe someone's messing with us. She scrolled down to the date again. It said posted 2 days ago. That was before we even got there. The next morning, I called the park office, just to ask if anyone else had reported strange activity. The ranger sounded tired, like he'd answered that question before. He said, "You two were at Site 12, right?" "Yeah," I said, long pause. Then he said quietly, "You might want to pick a different park next time." Before I could ask what he meant, he hung up. A week passed. We tried to forget about it, but weird things started happening. The first night back home, I woke up to the sound of knocking, 3 slow taps on my bedroom window. I looked outside. Nobody there. The next night, Leah texted me at 1:17 a.m. Just one message. "He's knocking again." I called her immediately. She didn't answer. I drove to her apartment. It took me less than 10 minutes. When I got there, she was sitting in her car in the parking lot crying. She said the knocking wouldn't stop until she ran outside. But when she looked back up at her window, there was someone standing behind the curtain, except she lived on the 3rd floor. After that night, Leah stayed at her sister's place for a while. She wouldn't talk much about it. Eventually, she deleted all the photos from that trip and made me promise never to mention Red Hollow again. I kept that promise until now, because last week I got a text from an unknown number. No name, no profile picture, just 3 words. "I'm cold again." I blocked the number immediately, but the message wouldn't disappear. Every time I opened my phone, it was there, waiting, glowing faintly on the screen. I finally smashed my phone, threw it in the trash, and bought a new one. But sometimes late at night, when everything's quiet, I still hear it. 3 slow knocks, always 3, and sometimes, when I'm half asleep, I swear I hear a whisper outside my window, low, calm, and almost polite. "Can I come in?" Which story scared you the most? Comment below and make sure to subscribe for more true horror stories. Because sometimes, the scariest ones are the ones that don't end.